And we're live, people.
Hello. What's up,
We got
everybody?
everybody's favorite fisherman on here. We got Mike Davis, spooky Mike Davis, on here to talk to us about weather and all sorts of other random things. I'm sure we'll go down some rabbit holes on other things.
Sure.
Yes,
I'm
of
sure.
course.
So
It's a good
Good
point.
evening, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always
yeah,
fun.
thanks for hopping on, man. It's always fun chatting with you and everyone, really.
Same.
Let's see, we got a bunch of people in here. We got all the peoples.
You
So
got the gang out already.
I know. Got all the usual people that are always in here.
Yeah, who's fishing already? Anybody catching them yet?
Yeah, let's Mike, how's fishing been? Let's
How's
see what
fishing
you've been
been?
up to. Yeah. What have you been
Oh,
up to? Tell the people what you've been doing.
fishing has been awesome, man. Yeah, it has really been awesome. You
Good for
know,
you.
I'm in South Mississippi, uh, 2.5 hours north of the Gulf Coast. So we've been getting some really good warm weather. We had a little cold front come through this weekend. It's 37, 38 degrees last night here where I live. But fishing has been great. I don't know what more to say. I just wish I could be off work more to fish with the weather we've been having. Uh,
Yeah,
it's
I hear
was
that.
it, was it March 11th, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
2.5 weeks ago we were catching females. They weren't sitting on the nest and spawning, but they were cruising back and forth up and down the shorelines and in the flats, and along timberlines, and it's been really good.
Heck yeah. I know you've been sending me a bunch of pictures of these big fish. What have you been catching them on?
Uh, I'll back up about 4 weeks ago. I
Okay.
was catching fish on a homemade swim bait. Uh,
Okay.
I say a homemade. My taxidermist friend, I think we mentioned this last time,
Mm-hmm.
makes some of these baits for me, and
Mm.
does a really cool job with them. Uh,
Oh yeah.
that's a single joint, and catching some of those fish. I caught um, a 712 and a 714 on a Buka bluegill.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of days later, I was able to get an 8.4 on that Buka bluegill.
Man.
And then I think it was a week ago today, early morning. It was one of those days that just lined up that I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be at work till 9:30, 10 o'clock. And like 4:30, I woke up and I said, I'm going fishing. Conditions are great. It's t-shirt weather outside. It's a light south wind. I'm going fishing. And it was kind of odd. It was kind of opposite than what I would kind of expect it to be right now in pre-spawn and spawn period.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it was very, very low light, fish were super active, super active.
Really?
As the full moon was going down and the sun was starting to come up, those fish cut off. But I was able to get a 9.3, a 9.1, and a 10.3
Mm.
before seven
Jesus.
before 7:30 that morning. And my
Man.
partner with me, I think he got a 8.13 or 8.14
Oh man.
and broke off a real good fish. So fishing has been
Man.
really, really good.
I bet you
That's
went into
awesome.
work that day just jacked. You were just like, yeah.
Oh yeah, you walk in like Stone Cold Steve Austin,
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
like Ken Duke to a Halloween party dressed as Uncle Fester.
I don't know about your job too, but I still go in like that, and nobody cares. Like I
Yeah,
sell
yeah,
parts, and nobody cares, but I'm still walking in like,
yeah.
"Oh,
There's like
look at this."
there's like one or two guys I work with that bass fish, and they're not as serious and eat up with it as we are.
Yeah, same. I got a couple guys that are actually like kind of interested a little bit, but one of them's a wildlife fisherman, so he's like,
Yeah,
you know. And then my other guy's a saltwater fisherman, so he's like, but
yeah.
he's still into it a little
Jeff,
bit.
fishing has been really good down here, guys. I've talked to a lot of guys, and uh, Louisiana's a little bit further south, at least down in the Buteau area. and fishing's been really good down around Slidell, Lake
Okay.
Charles area, Baton Rouge area, and it's actually been, I think, a little better down in that region in South Alabama and right south of you, Brendan, in North Florida.
Okay.
Your water temperature down there is probably 65 degrees by now, I would think.
Yeah, it's in the 60s, the low 60s, I believe, right now. Last I checked, which was
That's
last
crazy.
Sunday. So,
Yeah.
but it's been in the 70s here, which is pretty nice. It's really nice right now. But so also, if anyone in the comments has questions, hit us up in there, and we'll make sure to get to them throughout the show. But we're going to be talking a little bit about weather in today's show. That's going to be the main theme, I guess you could say. So, Mike, give us a, let's see, give us maybe some basics on weather. I guess you could say just some basic, I don't know, big fish kind of weather that you like to look for. Like whenever you're looking on your weather app and you're like, all right, I want to go fish. I have one day to go fish and I can fish any day of the week. And there's a bunch of different weather patterns. Like what's the preferred weather that you're looking for if you're going to go out and catch some big fish?
Well, me personally, Brendan, I'm always looking for a low pressure, an approaching low pressure system. But to back up, let me back up just a little bit before that. I'm constantly watching the weather, and that's part of my job is since childhood I grew up on a farm. As you live on a farm yourself, so we're always watching the weather, and I caught a interest in it early as a child and started making a lot of notes and I've been fishing since I was old enough to walk, so I was started noticing things early in life, flowers bloom open and open up during certain weather conditions. They close in certain weather conditions. And I started realizing as a young teenager, hey, when these flowers start closing up, I'm sitting at the ponds just tearing the fish up. You start studying that stuff, and you got a low pressure moving in. It's a couple of days out or a day and a half out. And those flowers will start closing a little bit. And as it approaches more and more, the flowers start closing on up. Certain types of sage grass, will kind of darken up or change colors as that low front is approaching. Barometric pressure. I'm such a barometric pressure fanatic about my fishing and hunting. I have a homemade one here in my kitchen, and I have a barometer on my front porch, so I'm constantly watching it. And if I see, like in the summertime, I see a big thunderstorm front coming, and you look on your weather app and say, "Oh, it's going to hit in 4 hours." Well, I can get 3.5 hours in of fishing. The barometer is going crazy. I'll run to a nearby lake or river and get a few hours, and it's typically pretty much on target.
That's
I
crazy.
watch the barometric pressure like crazy. I watch the contrails in the sky, the vapor trails that the jets are leaving, as they flying by, and that's a huge indicator. Let's just say you have no access to weather or weather app, weather channel, no access at all to weather. Just watching nature signs can tell us a lot, and those contrails to me are pretty important. You got a jet, for example, flying over, I don't know, I'm no pilot, let's just say 30,000 feet. And you can see that contrail disappearing almost immediately behind the jet. Well, that's an indication that it's very, very dry up in the atmosphere and there's no contrail. It's disappearing almost immediately. But, you have those days you look up and those contrails are just lingering, and you've got tons and tons of contrails just lingering in the sky. That's an indication of a low front is approaching, because of the humidity and moisture up in the air. And a lot of people don't realize that a contrail is just ice crystals. It's condensation, coming off the jet engine. So if conditions are favorable for a contrail to form and hang behind that jet, I'm probably going to start planning a fishing trip within the next day and a half to 2 days, because I know conditions are fixing to get favorable to catch a good fish.
Man,
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Never thought about that.
Man, I don't watch like the weather very much. Like I'm not that kind of person. Like I've never dove into it that much. But
You just go
I
out.
mean, I just go out whenever I can. That's the biggest thing I can. But
I'm not that good.
I mean,
I'm
you
not
know.
as good as you are, Brandon. Brandon can catch
I'm
a
kind of
wherever he
yeah.
wants.
I just
Kinda
catch
what
them
I
whenever.
do, too. I just go out as much as I can.
Yeah,
Now I do
I
go
have
out.
noticed.
You know, if I'm off work tomorrow, chances are I'm going to fish at some point, if not
Mhm.
all day long, regardless. But if I can plan it a little bit in advance, yeah,
Definitely.
I'm definitely watching that weather and pick and choose my spot and what day I take off to go fish.
Okay, so last summer I went out to this pond and I was fishing and I didn't even realize that this storm was coming. It was a gigantic storm, giant storm. Like on the way back from the lake, there were trees falling in the road, like crazy winds, like the wind was blowing the truck around. It was like moving. I was like, golly, this is crazy. So I was fishing right before the storm and I fished all day. It was probably 6, 7 hours of fishing throughout the day. And then on the last hour, I caught an 8 and a bunch of 3s and 4s. Like it was just kind of lights out. Like it was just like as soon as I saw those clouds kind of roll in, I was like, dang. I started catching fish, and I was like,
Mhm.
okay, there's got to be something like this. There's got to be something going on here. And it happened again before,
Yeah.
a couple weeks after that, and I was like, dang, there's got to be something to this. So I was like, if I ever see a storm coming in, I'm like, all right, I better get ready because it's going to happen probably.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the one thing that I always keep a lookout for, if
Yeah.
I'm ever on the lake. But that's pretty wild. So that's like the barometric pressure going up, right? If a storm rolls in.
It's going down.
Okay, it's going down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going down.
Interesting.
In a high pressure system, it's going to go up. In a low pressure system, it's going to go down. And where we are here, we often get hurricanes.
Mhm.
And if I see a hurricane that's coming toward the Gulf of Mexico, I try to start planning fishing trips. It's suspected to make landfall in Alabama, Mississippi, and watch the tracking chart and say, okay, on Tuesday, it's going to be making landfall in Mobile, Alabama.
Mhm.
I'm probably going to be fishing right before, during, until it runs me off the water.
Mhm.
And
Interesting.
now, let me ask you a question about
That's
that trip
brilliant.
you were speaking of.
Yeah.
Were you catching those fish as the storm moved in on you? It was already
As soon as I
raining
saw
and
those
storming?
clouds, as
Yeah.
soon as I saw them,
Yeah.
and then I kept on fishing until it started raining on me, and I was like, all right, I got to get out here because this looks really bad. Like it was like
Yeah.
black clouds,
Yeah.
I'm sure you know what I mean because in the
Oh,
air
yeah.
got cold. Like that's when it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can watch those clouds too, and if they have the jagged bottoms.
Mhm.
You got a wall cloud that's kind of jagged on bottoms and all. It's going to be a lot more severe than just a big cloud that's solid moving through.
Mhm.
And
Hmm.
like I said, I'm no meteorologist, but I did stay
Oh,
at a
paying
Holiday Inn
attention.
Express one night. So
Yeah. That's called paying attention. Attention to
Yeah.
detail.
Man,
That's all it is. You've been outside for however many years you've been outside, and
Yeah.
It goes. What is that? It's the how many hours until you master something?
it's 10,000 hours. It's 18 minutes a day or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you've been outside for 10,000 hours, right?
Well, I'm
More than
almost
that.
50. I'm almost 55, and I believe I was born outside. So
So by the definition of the term, you are a master outdoorsman.
I wouldn't know about that, but it's like I always say, I catch the dumb ones. That's the dumb ones.
Come
I
on
didn't
now.
say master
This-
bass fisherman. I said master outdoorsman.
And it's fun to throw another piece of the puzzle into fishing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Chances are you're going to watch the weather anyway.
it's a big
I
piece
do.
too.
I always want to know what's the low tonight, what's the high tomorrow. You look at it, see how to dress for the day. Is it going to be real foggy in the morning? Is it going to take me an extra 45 minutes to commute to where I have to work tomorrow?
Mhm.
So, and I love fishing in the fog. I
Yeah.
think, give you an idea. or to dovetail into the fog there, let's just say you have a full moon, and I'm a moon fanatic also.
Okay.
If you got a bright full moon, night fishing is typically king. It's much better at night on a full moon night than it is during the daytime.
Mhm.
But if you've got a fog pattern, a heavy fog moves in on you, and the early bite is the best. And I'm not speaking of full moon illumination and all that. I'm just saying a foggy morning. Let's just say it's on a quarter moon. That fog holds that light back a lot more. It's almost like an overcast over that lake. And fishing for me is typically better in foggy situations. Now, if you're fishing a big reservoir, and all, safety wise, running up and down the lake and all, but fishing a lot of smaller lakes, launch the boat and start fishing right there.
Mhm.
I've caught a lot of good fish on it, real heavy, foggy days. And it would suit me fine if the fog lasted all day long. The sun never burned it up, burned it off. So I love fishing a good foggy day like that because it holds that light off the water.
So what are you throwing in? Like say you're going early morning, there's a bunch of fog on the water. Like what's your go-to for that?
Well, if it's very foggy, there's probably not going to be any wind, because the wind will blow it off.
Blow it away.
So that's going to take me out of throwing a spook. I like a little bit of chop on the water most of the times for fishing a spook, unless they're just telling me, "Hey, Mike, we want," so I'm probably going to be throwing a spinner bait if conditions are there for it. I like a swim bait. And a lot of times I just move it under the surface like this 6 cents. I think that's a sweep.
I was just about to say, is that a sweep?
Yeah, I think
You get Jermaine excited.
Yeah. Hey, I like that bait.
I know. So that's one of the few baits I don't have. And I was just talking to my guy about it, and he's killing them on it. So
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been having a lot of good success on it. So
is he using just a slow, steady retrieve, or is he
I didn't get into all that with him. But I think he's just using a slow retrieve.
Yeah. Back in the winter, in December and in January, I was catching a lot of fish on it with just a slow, steady retrieve. And I was typically, which I'm using a weighted kill hook on, and I was, counting it down to about 10 or 11 where the fish were in just a slow, steady retrieve. But the last few weeks, I've been jerking that bait a lot, giving it a strong rod twitch and making it real erratic and kill it and let it flutter down. And they're typically hitting it on the fall down as it's fluttering downward.
It's like a lipless. Like a lipless crankbait. Interesting. Or a chatterbait.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Brandon, I feel like that's something you would like.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to fish it. I've never heard of anyone doing that. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to try that.
I think Brenda's good with anything. He'd go out with a cane pole and a cricket and come back with a 10-pound bass. So.
No, it's too light for him.
It's too tiny. I need one of those jungle crickets that are like this big.
Under an ounce. Anything under an ounce. I don't know if he can catch it. Unless he's cranking. Okay. He knows how to crank, but
crank and spinnerbait. Those are two I do.
He only throws two things under an ounce.
No, I do throw a buzzbait too, and a chopo and a plopper and all that stuff.
A few things.
Yeah, a few things. But have you ever tried those super tiny spooks in that low light, foggy, clean, calm water conditions? Yes. Can you get that on those, or is it
almost like a tiny torpedo, almost that size?
Yeah.
Yes, I have. And
those still not
I've never had the luck catching big fish with those like I do the Super Spook Junior and the big spooks, the regular Zara spooks. But yes, I've thrown them quite a bit. Sure have.
Okay, I gotcha. Because sometimes those little baits, even in the right conditions, those things can just catch some big ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
It's crazy, but
I think it's conducive to the size of the bait fish that are in the impoundment of the lake, reservoir, river, wherever you're fishing. I don't think a 10-pounder is used to seeing a big giant shad or a shiner come by
There's something there.
7 or 8 inches. Yeah, like that right there. If 99% of the bait fish in that environment is all 3-inch size bait. Not saying he won't hit it, but you know,
Yeah.
I fish a lot of water. I'll tell you one thing I love to do, especially this time of year, when we're getting a lot of rainfall and almost all of these ponds,
Hot.
creeks, lakes are running over, is watch the spillway. I'll watch the spillway a lot of times, and I used to have a good friend of mine I grew up with. We would take a cast net behind the Ross Barnett Reservoir sometimes, cast out, pull it in real quick, and say, okay, 75% of the bait fish are 3 inches. And we were fishing for largemouth and stripers, and we'd say, okay, we'd match the hatch, but if we threw out a cast net at, say, Bill Waller Lake, which is only 150 or so acres, and we was catching big giant silver shiners, we said, okay, well, we're going to something like this,
Yeah.
kind of match the baits to the size bait fish that we found.
That definitely makes sense because they're feeding on that,
Yeah.
That's what they're eating. So that's what they're going to be keying in on,
Yeah. Like probably late next month, I'll be throwing a bluegill. When the bluegill start bedding here, I'll be throwing a bluegill size bait around those bluegill beds, trying to catch a 12, 13 pounder.
Oh man. I love fishing around bluegill beds. Like that's like so much fun, dude. Like you'll go back into like the back of a pocket, like you'll roll up in there, you shut the motor off, you get on your trolling motor, you creep in there, and if there's wind pushing you into the back, that's even better. So you can just kind of float right back in there, and you can smell, like you can literally smell the bluegill, like it's crazy. And then once you smell that, you kind of go to the side, and if you can see some deeper water, you just throw your bait like right over there in that deeper water. And you just like work a bluegill bait, like whether that's like a geek rack bait or a little bluegill swim bait or whatever. Dude, those things, they just crush it. It's so much fun fishing right around there.
Like they love to stage, your bluegill beds here, and there's a little bit deeper water over in the dark shadows over here, and then it's like they see the wounded wildebeest in the herd, and they reach in and grab one right quick, and right back into the shadows they go. So I know exactly what you're speaking of, and I love to fish like that.
Yes, Jermaine, you got any places like that up there? Like, did the bluegill like get those big spawning bays?
They'll set up like a little area. I feel like sometimes, but nothing too crazy. Honestly, I haven't paid attention too much. I guess I should a little bit more. But I haven't really paid too much to it, too much attention to it.
I think he's 2 years ago.
Jermaine's busy catching those 7-8 pound smallmouth.
Yeah,
I wish. I think my biggest is like
crawdads.
4. I haven't caught. I haven't caught like a football yet. I've caught a long smallmouth. I got one that's like 4, but he was just long. Like I think it was like 21, and it was a smallie. So a long fish, but I want to catch one that's like 6. Those just meatballs, pissed off. That's what I'm looking for.
Exactly. I think we would all love to catch one of those.
Yeah, Brandon's never caught a smallmouth. He has no idea.
Yeah.
No smallmouth.
That's crazy.
Never. I've only caught a few myself.
Have you hooked into like a good one that takes you for a ride?
No.
Oh man.
Let's both make a trip up there.
I remember the first time I caught. So when I first got back into bass fishing, I probably told this story before, and I had no idea there were smallies in this lake, and I caught like a 3 or 4 pound smallie. I was like, "Oh my god, I caught it! This is it! I've got a 9-10 pound bass on. This is crazy." And I pull it up, and I'm like, "Wow, this bass is sick. Why is it like gold like this?" Why is it brown like this? Like, what's wrong with it? There's something wrong with this fish.
Mhm.
And then like I pulled it up and I got it on its side and it was just tired. It was like tired and it was just kind of laying there. And I'm like, dang, did I just kill this fish? What the hell just happened here? I didn't do anything. I just pulled it in. And that's when I saw the red eyes. And I'm like, oh, I think this is a smallmouth bass.
Yeah.
I took my pictures. I let it go. But it like, you know, smallmouth get like, I feel like they get way more tired out than largemouth. And they'll like, just like sometimes they won't go off quicker. Like largemouth, I feel like they'll come back a little bit quicker anyway. But the fish just didn't. It kind of like swam off a little, and then I get home and I look it up and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was a smallmouth. It was a good size smallmouth too.
Mhm.
Might be my PB, honestly, and I don't even know.
That's horrible.
Because it was a good one. Like it scared me.
Man.
It scared me. I had no idea what I was like. Yo, I remember at one point because they dig. Like you'll get them up. You're like, oh yeah, I caught a fish. You'll feel the bump, and you're like, okay, it's coming, and you get it up to the top, and it's just like no, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, you're still fighting, and it did that, and it just went, and then just started spool. I'm like, at that point, that never happened to me before.
Yeah.
So, well, not in like 10 years since I've been fishing with my dad, you know, but I was a month, 2 months back into fishing when that happened. Yeah, it was pretty
awesome. That's awesome.
Crazy. Oh man.
Yeah. Now you're ruined for life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't got to experience that yet, so I'm not ruined. I'm just
honestly
my big largemouth. I'm
trying to plan it now. There's like I'm gonna butcher the name, so don't make fun of me. I think it's called Chowmont Bay. And the St. Lawrence, the Bassmaster Classic was up there last year, and that's the bay the guy won it out of. So he caught, it was crazy. He was catching like 6-7 pounders left and right. Like he found like a crazy pod of them.
Wow.
And was just pulling them out left and right. So, and that's where that was the bay, Chowmont Bay. But it's like, excuse me, it was like, I think it's like 4-hour drive. It's not crazy. Like it's a good trip, but it's just on the other side of New York.
Yeah. I think you ought to take off work and be there tomorrow. You know?
Yeah, right.
If I had that kind of small mouth fishing 4 hours from me, I would probably
5 hours, 6 minutes.
Yeah. I'd probably be there tonight, you know.
Yeah.
After this show, you know, we would go tonight.
So that's it right there.
Yeah.
Man. That's so
Well,
cool.
yeah,
That big
hey,
smallmouth.
You guys, you know, yeah, that's close enough. Just go ahead and pack a lunch and go on over tomorrow.
Right?
But you guys get some insane weather up there, you know.
Yeah.
That's really insane.
It's snowing. Like I was talking to somebody in chat. It was snowing. It was snowing yesterday.
Yeah. I notice a lot on the Weather Channel and the apps I'm always looking at. I'll watch the isobars, you know, the little lines they show on the map, and when they're real close together, it's super windy, you know, and then they spread out a little bit and it's less wind, you know. That's another tool I like to look at, the isobars on the weather map and plan fishing trips according to wind, which to me personally, and I'll probably get dinged 1,000 times in the next 5 minutes for this, but the wind's not really going to bother the fish that much as it bothers us.
Yeah.
You know? And I'll tell you another little trick I learned years ago, and I have no scientific information to back this up.
Oh, this is a good one right here, I'm sure.
Except experience. And I've had this conversation with Bill Dance before, and he agreed 100% totally that he often uses it when filming shows.
Oh.
High winds in shallow water, if there's vegetation around, say like cattails, bulrushes, buggy whips and all, you know, they'll position themselves up in that stuff to help their equilibrium so they don't tip over, you know, to help them stay upright in high winds in shallow water. And that's when I like to go start flipping. I actually got to use this bait 3 or 4 times. It's a new bait by Missile Bait Company.
Oh,
this big
yeah.
jig.
That's it right there.
And I had very good luck with it last week, just pitching it up in bulrushes and cattails, and 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds gusting to 28. And, what can you do
Man.
about boat control? I don't worry about boat control too much in wind like that, and just kind of position it to parallel those real thick vegetation shorelines, and caught quite a few fish pitching that jig up in there. And
Man.
are they position themselves to help their equilibrium so they don't tip over? I don't really know, but if it's good enough for Bill Dance, it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
He shared my same theory on that. So
that's crazy right there. You know what? Actually, last Sunday I was fishing a lipless, and there was some grass, and it was getting a lot of wind. Like, it was a really windy day. Like, the water was choppy, crazy. And I positioned myself so that way I can just kind of float around the grass. There was a couple like grass patches, not super thick grass, but I pitched a lipless in there and I caught a fish. So I don't know. That's interesting. I've never thought of that. That's very cool. I'm gonna have to mess around with that. Like,
I believe like in mats, if it's real thick mats and you've got some depth, you've got a good water column underneath the mat. I think, a high wind like that, especially on a high pressure day, and typically on a high pressure day or a low front is moving in, is you're going to have a lot of wind. But I think if you got real thick mats, and I've actually seen this before on Lake Taneycomo up in Missouri, very, very thick mats that a turtle could crawl across. You pitch and punch through those mats, and bam, bam, go to a next pothole where you could pitch and punch down through it, bam. It's like, dang, man, they're here. But you go to the opposite shoreline that the wind was blowing over that shore. It wasn't really affected because Taneycomo's, basically a river channel. It's just a long, narrow river channel type lake. But you go to the shoreline there that really wasn't taking those waves and affected by the wind, couldn't hardly get a strike. Stay on the windy shoreline, and it was bam, bam, bam.
Man, that's crazy right there. I love fishing in wind though. Like, I hate it in like calm water. It's like horrible. Like, I love it when there's wind blowing.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
Oh no, you're good.
I think we can get away with a lot more movement and noise in wind, especially in clear water, or especially in a lake or impoundment that's heavily pressured. I think we can get away with a lot more movement, noise, etc. if we got some wind to kind of camouflage that sound.
Yeah, and you can just like take your boat to one end of the lake, and if there's grass or there's like cypress trees or there's laydowns on the entire side of the lake, you just drive to one end and you just float down, and you drive back up to the other end and you float down, and the wind just carries you. You don't even have to touch your trolling motor usually. It just like carries you right down. You can quietly kind of pitch around or cast. And that's actually what I was doing with last time I went out.
It never happens in a kayak. You always get spun around.
Oh, that's horrible.
Wrong direction. You're like trying to
you
cast.
Just get turned around.
The wind's just.
Well, do you ever use a drift sock? You ever throw a drift sock out the back of the kayak to slow you down a little bit? And
I guess I should, right? But
that's important to have. Yeah. I mean, I have. I just like, if I'm in like my paddleboard, I could just use my legs and I can kick myself around like a pool float.
I can't believe you use a paddleboard and there's goddamn
gators. Yeah.
That's
you
crazy.
Take your chances. You got to take your chances for big fish. Come on now.
That's crazy.
I threw this most of the day. This is most of last trip. That's 11 inches of bait. I caught a 1 3-pounder, but I went to one end of the lake and I just floated down to the other side, casting this thing, and I was paralleling it along grass lines and cypress trees. And it came, that fish shot from under like a cypress tree and just smashed the thing. Like, I watched it, I was burning it back, and it just hit it right there in the side and grabbed it like that.
I was wondering where I left my bait at. I guess it was in your boat. I'm glad you found it for me.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know this is your bait. This is actually another friend's bait. I'm sorry. This is you're not getting this one. Sorry, this is not
Yeah,
yours. This is
I
not
would
yours.
I would appreciate it if you change the hooks on it before I get it back. Okay.
Freshies,
man.
please, for my boy.
Yeah, I think I told you before the show. Last week I had a really good morning, and it was almost perfect.
Mhm.
You know, a little bit of fog, south wind at like 3 to 4,
Mhm.
and I shut the outboard off, dropped the trolling motor, never touched the trolling motor for 400 yards. You know, it just drifted me ever so slowly,
Yeah.
paralleling that shoreline along vegetation. You know,
Nice.
was able to pick up that 9-1 and 10-3 doing that during a swim bait. And I honestly believe, because all those fish were shallow, they were 3 foot and less, you know.
Mm.
And I think that drift produced 17. I think I was able to get 17, and my partner got almost that many.
Mhm.
I can't count past 15s, you know, so I'm not sure what he caught, but you know, we never had to touch the trolling motor in 400 yards. And I think if we'd been making a lot of noise and bang boom and, you know, pinging it with sonar go, I don't think we'd ever caught that many fish in 400 yards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not the big ones.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in that shallow water.
Yeah,
You know?
Mhm.
Because, you know, we all know how easily they spook in
yeah,
real shallow water, you know.
yeah. You're like, whoa, 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 what's that?
But I
Yeah.
will tell you one thing: we were making really long casts, you know.
Mm.
And my partner, you know, hey, you want to get up front with me? No, I want to fish out of the back of the boat. I want to fish your trash water. And you see a guy catch a 6-pounder right beside the outboard, the
Yeah.
place you just fished. You know, what am I doing wrong? You know.
Oh man, that must like really put the damper on because you're like, oh dang, how did I let that happen? What the heck is happening? And I think a lot of the time is like the person in the back is just fishing slower, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's
And,
just different speeds.
and I think he was throwing a swim bait. You know, he was throwing a sweep, a 6-inch sweep, like I was a large part of the time.
Mhm.
And a lot of those fish were following that bait out of that vegetation, you know, and he was getting it 7, 8, 10 yards from the back of the boat there at the engine and just killing it and letting it just do a little flutter, and they were
Mhm.
nailing it, you know. I'm like,
Man.
man, you got a 6-pounder on and he's so close you can't even fight him. You know, he had to mash the button and let him run out to calm down a minute before, you know, could lip him, you know.
Dang.
Yeah,
That's wild right there. Man,
Yeah.
I mean, like if you're like on the paddleboard, I've had it happen a few times because you're like you don't make any noise because there's no electronics on it, and you're just kicking around, and you throw out a bait and you bring it right to the next to the paddleboard, and it's basically like you're sitting on a log. Like the fish don't know, you're there. You're quiet.
Right.
You can't make a noise, you know. And you bring the bait up, and dude, they just follow like right there, right next to your leg. They're sitting there like right next to your leg, and you shake the rod and make the bait just kind of like do a figure eight like the musky guys do, but do it like faster on top of the water
Yeah.
and splash it, and they just boom, and it sounds like a cannonball, like a bowling ball hit the water. Like they just smash it right there, and you just let them like take out some drag and fight them. Like that's like so crazy when they do that. Like they just come right there, and you're just like, that's a fish right there. Don't move, just move the rod.
Yeah.
You know? Craziness.
Oh,
You know.
I want to see you come down to the Gulf of Mexico and catch one of those giant tarpon doing that on a
Oh,
kayak. You know,
that thing
I
would pull
like
me
to be in the boat.
around.
I like to be in the boat beside you and film it. You know, and I'll
Even on
pass you
Christmas.
lunch. I'll pass the lunch off to you in a brown paper bag when we
Yeah.
pass Key West. You know, on the way to
Yeah.
Cuba. So,
my boss caught like a 25-pound striper in his kayak, and it took him for a ride in the Hudson.
oh, I bet.
Yeah, he was in the
Man.
river. Like
Long
Hudson
fight.
River's big.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
he
man.
was like in a little bay, and he caught a good striper, and he just went for a ride.
Oh,
It was
man.
just
Yeah.
That would
awesome.
be so scary. Like a 200-pound tarpon. Like that would like literally be scary. Like because there's sharks in the water. Like
I know you've
would
seen
be
that video
freaking out.
where the guy hooks one and he's like going faster than the boats.
Yeah.
You see that video? He like hooks one and he's like in like a back of the bay
Oh man.
and he takes it all the way. It takes him all the way out. I'm
I'm
like,
gonna tell you that
scary.
would be more awesome than that, Jermaine, if it was a largemouth.
yeah, I'm kind of wild.
Man,
Yeah.
that would be crazy right there.
There's not like, I mean, like I guess smallmouth kind of give you that a little bit where you got to put your foot in, like if you're bank fishing, you got to put your foot in the ground and you're like, oh, you know, you're on the boat and you're like, oh, I got to lean into this.
Yeah.
That's the best feeling.
And
Exactly.
I would like to know, like, about rain. What's your deal with rain? Like, what do you like? Like, do you like to fish in rain? Like, is it something that you look for, or you
Guys,
like no?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like an old house cat. I don't like to be out in the rain a whole lot. But well, here in my part of the United States, in South Central Mississippi, it's going to start getting hot in about May. You know, we're going to start having some hot weather. June, July, August, September, and parts of October. Unless it's a lightning storm, I'm just going to put on some frog clogs and stick it out and bear with it. I've had tremendous success fishing in the rain, especially, let's say, like last summer, for example. We had a severe drought here last summer.
Mhm.
Most of all our lakes, unless they were spring fed, natural spring fed, was 4 to 6 feet low on average, you know.
Wow.
So you start getting those really hot temperatures, high pressure days. There's almost not a cloud in the sky. It's 95, 100 degrees, high humidity, very little wind most of the time. I'm going to be watching that weather. Okay, tomorrow afternoon is 75% chance of thunderstorms. I'm probably going to fish that afternoon if there's any way possible. That cloud cover coming in, it's going to cool down a little bit. If you start getting some rainfall, there's a little bit of fresh oxygen hitting the water. You know, if you're getting runoff, I want to try to find the runoffs if I know the lake very well and fish in that runoff area. And to give you a classic example of that, probably 10 years ago, I was fishing just outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, and we had a tornado come through, tore up a bunch of stuff. I was laid up stayed in the hotel. Wasn't going to get out in that type weather until it passed. But we got like 4 inches of rain really quick. And I said, okay, this particular lake, I know where a big runoff ditch is coming into this lake. Get to the boat ramp, race down there a few miles, get to it, and it looks like white water just rolling into this lake. Put on, I think it was like a little 3.5 inch swim bait, and for the next 2 hours, just sit there and kill them.
Oh, man.
And my partner looked at me and said, "You had enough?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Let's go find some big fish." Because we were catching a lot of 1.5 to 4 pound bass, but there was nothing bigger. And I'll never forget this. And I thought this was really interesting. We could troll right up to the mouth of this ditch, and there was a little bit of elevation change that was funneling all this water in there. And right before we left, we trolled within 10 feet, 15 feet of where it was. And he said, "Man, Mike, look at that." And you can see like 2 or 3 crawfish hanging on to leaves and debris trying to get up on dry ground. And we're like, well, that's what's washing in here is all these crawfish, because a lot of the fish that we caught, had the pinchers sticking out of their gullet,
Yeah.
And there's no telling how many crawfish were washing into that area, And so, yeah, I'm a big believer in the rain during the hot, especially, the hot summertime weather.
Interesting.
Especially if it's really hot, high humidity, and you haven't had any rain and very little cloud cover for a couple of weeks. Rain is definitely your friend.
Man,
But
I never fished too much in the rain.
I'm not a lightning guy at all. When it
Yeah,
starts lightning, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm on my kayak.
Yeah,
think
if you're
I
on the
only
water.
once.
I'll
Yeah.
stick refuge in a bait shop until the lightning passes somewhere.
Hey, that's fun though. That you get some good conversations out of that right there.
Yeah.
All the fishermen go there whenever it starts raining.
Yeah.
Especially you have like a local marina. You just
Yeah.
eat some food there. Eat some food. Wait for the rain.
Exactly.
You know. But yeah, I never fish too much in the rain personally. I don't like it. I hate doing it. It's
I
just the
will.
worst.
Tournaments, you gotta do what you gotta do, but it's not
That's
a
true.
tournament. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Like when
man.
those pros do it, like the pros are out there and they're like they're running down the lake 60
Sure.
miles an hour and it's like pouring rain. It's cold.
Yeah, if it's a
That has
tournament,
got
you
to
gotta
be
do what you gotta do.
miserable.
You
Ugh.
know?
If I was out there trying to make my living doing that, I just have to
Yeah.
suck it up.
Even me, I'm fishing for like $200-$300, a couple $100.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah.
out there. I remember there was a couple tournaments, and like I'm that guy. Like it was summertime. I had shorts on and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It was 80 degrees, but it started raining like hard, and I was just like,
Yeah.
man, you just
I've had
in it, and it rained hard for like literally like an hour straight, like an hour and a half, and it was just like, I'm just in it.
that heavy rain will dampen your spirits real quick.
Oh yeah.
Man,
When
that's for sure.
when you get wet down to your drawers,
Yeah.
it changes everything.
Exactly.
Look, when you do the, and it just, and you're just like, oh man,
Yeah.
you're just
Exactly.
it changes your mood real quick.
I've experienced a few bad experiences with lightning during the course of my life, and I don't want to do it again. And back
Close
in,
calls?
pardon me.
Close calls.
Yeah, well, back years ago, my partner and I we went on we went on a call, and he was hunting some crackhead who had abandoned or barricaded himself in a barn, a shed, and it was in a lightning storm, and we saw him, peeking out the doors and windows of this barn, and as we go running across a barnyard to get over to him, lightning popped. And it didn't blow his radio off the side of his gun belt, but it blew the facing off of his radio, and his radio started smoking. And I'm like, his name was Ronell. I said, "Hey, Ronell," I said, "You're on fire, man." And he said, I felt, a tingle down my leg, and it was on his gun side. And he said, "Thank God my bullet, the bullets in my weapon didn't go off, But
that's scary right there.
and I had another friend. We answered a call one night at a gym, and he went to touch the door to walk into this gym as lightning hit the building, and he landed about 33 feet behind us.
What?
4 or 5 nights in the hospital,
Took him for a ride.
Yeah. And back in the old days of BASS, I had a good friend of mine who was fishing the BASS event on Lake Gunnersville. And it was in one of the practice days. And they were up in a cove, and I forget the cove, creek area they were fishing. And it's like he said, lightning got really bad. And he said, I put my stuff up, put on my rain suit. And he said, another boat was paralleling him about 100 yards away. And the guy was just underhanding a spinnerbait in some willow trees or whatever bushes were. And he said, he's the tallest thing on that lake.
Yeah.
He's holding a 7-foot rod or so on a boat. He's the tallest thing on, and lightning hit his trolling motor and rod. And he said, the guy would have died if I didn't see him. He said it blew. The only thing kept him from going out of the boat was the outboard. It blew him up against the outboard. They got him to a marina a few miles away and got him to a hospital. And he said he lived and was okay after a few days in hospital. He said, but the most amazing thing about it, he said, you should have saw that rod. It was just splintered into a million pieces, of fiberglass.
Wow.
That's crazy.
He said, but every hair on that gentleman's body was snow white by the time they could get him to a marina and get him in an ambulance.
That's crazy. Lightning is scary. I can see.
Yeah.
Ow. That's crazy right there. I hear like if right before the lightning is about to strike you, your rod starts vibrating if you have a graphite rod.
You can
I don't
feel
know if
it.
that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
that's-
heard that too.
I don't know if
If
that's
you're,
true.
if you're in like a lightning area, or like there's too much
Mhm.
whatever in the air, you supposedly. That's what my dad told me. He said you could feel it, and he was like, if you ever feel your rod buzzing, drop your rod and get and go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally just drop it and just go. It's not worth it. It's
Yeah.
like you can come back and get the rod.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. I'm not going to
Yeah.
test it.
You're in a boat, get under the console, get in a rod locker.
Yeah.
You're
Take
pulling
whatever
the
shelter
security.
you have. You know,
At the end of the day, be safe. You want to be
not
able
like
to.
if someone's shooting at you. It's amazing how small you can get behind a little bitty rock if someone's shooting at you.
Yes.
Right?
Oh man.
That's
I bet
shit.
you have some interesting
It's
stories
market.
because of what you do for a living. I bet you have some interesting
I
stories.
go on for days about that.
I prefer the bass fishing stories.
Yeah.
We do got a few questions though for you.
Yeah, let's hit on some of these questions.
Mike Vogel said, I often heard about the fish before low pressure. But when is best to? 2 hours before, 12 hours one day. I think you touched on that a little bit.
My personal observation and opinion is that 2 hours is the best. That 2 hours and during the actual front landing in your location is the best in my opinion, in my experience. You know, give an example of that. A few years ago, a friend of mine was coming over from Alabama to fish with me, and they were on fire. I mean, they were really, really. It was about this time of year, and we had a cold front coming in. There was a high coming in. It was going to be 25, 30 mile an hour winds. You know, it's going to drip back into like 28, 29 degrees that night. And I told him, I said, well, I'm going to go on and fish. You know, I want to go on and fish. So I got a friend of mine went with me. We get to the lake, and there was a point that was just being crashed with these, I call it little mini white caps. They were just big enough rollers to white cap a little bit. And we said, well, let's go try a spinnerbait, you know, along that wavy shoreline and see. And man, it was incredible. I mean, it was incredible. An hour or so later, we were shivering. The cold front had done hit. The wind kept picking up. We were digging out any clothing we could find in the boat to put on because it got so cold. And we finally left about an hour after dark, and we were still catching them. You know, and the front had been there for 4 hours. Because, you know, it takes a while for the conditions of the front to actually affect those fish. You know?
Yeah.
It's not going to be like flipping on a light switch.
Yeah.
Like if a cold front moves in at 2:30, 3 o'clock tonight, and I wake up in the morning and there's frost on the grass, I'm still going fishing and probably still going to catch the fish because the water hasn't cooled off enough yet to really affect them. And when it gets daylight, the cloud cover, you know, if you got a frost, there's not going to be any cloud cover whatsoever. It's going to be a clear sky. So the high pressure system is probably not affected those fish yet, you know.
Man, it's crazy. This is good information in this episode. This is like really interesting stuff, dude.
Yeah.
Man. So Bass in the Big Malone.
It's another piece of the puzzle that I enjoy. You know, it's fun. It's fun putting it all together.
Yeah,
it is. Like you've got all of these different conditions and weather. You've got where you're going to be fishing, where the fish are staging at. You've got your lures. You got the different techniques that you're going to be using with these lures, how to reel them in, and then you got boat positioning, what size of fish you're targeting, like all this different stuff that you got to fit into to catch these fish. It's crazy.
And it's just it's constantly just going on in your head. You know, you're just thinking.
Yes.
You know, and that's why I love hearing this stuff because like I can feel it. Like I'm gonna be in a tournament and I'm gonna look at the bank and I'm gonna see some flowers and be like, are they open or closed?
Right.
You know? Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. They're close, you know, and it's like these are silly little things that you know you hear and you just you gotta try to implement when you're in that situation yourself.
My son Wyatt fishes with me a lot, and he's always picking at me. He said, "Yeah, I see you looking up at the sky. You're gazing off in the trees. You know, what are you doing? What are you doing now, Dad? What are you looking for? I said, well, I'm looking for the birds and the squirrels, any wildlife. See
Mhm.
deer walking along the shoreline up in the wood. And, you may fish for hours and hours. Let's just say it's a lake or a river and a lot of tree line cover, a lot of woods around. You may fish for hours and hours and only see a few birds,
Mhm.
maybe no squirrels, maybe no deer. And then all of a sudden, start seeing some squirrel activity, start seeing flocks of birds, seeing birds rustling in the leaves, looking for bugs and food and things. And you ever notice, typically, oh, I got a bite.
Mhm.
Oh, I got another bite. I got another bite.
Everything's active.
Yeah, everything just kind of turns on. You know, did the barometer drop a little bit? Did some cloud cover move in? Did the moon get overhead or underfoot?
Mhm.
Something changed a little bit to trigger that wildlife and fish to start coming onto a bite.
Yeah. I have noticed that with like animal, like deer. Like I had actually written that down on my paper right here. I'd written down that I wanted to touch on deer and like other animals, like how once they start getting active, you're like, oh, fish are starting to get active because everyone's like active. It's
Yeah.
interesting. And especially with birds, like, dude, when you see those birds, like those diver birds going in and getting bait fish, like you're like, it's on. Like you even watch it in the ocean, like Planet Earth videos. You see all the birds, all the different fish, all the whales and stuff, and you see them eating like krill or these sardines out in the middle of the ocean, and you see it just goes down out there. And it's the same thing that's happening in the lake. You've got the birds coming in. You've got sometimes even otters are coming in. You've got all these different fish that are coming in to feed on these giant balls of bait,
Yeah.
and that's when it's going down. Like you're going to start catching them, if you can find the right lure to stand out from all those little fish.
Yeah, exactly.
We should have had.
I don't know if you guys live on water or around water, but I've got what I call my test tank out here in the front yards, full pool. It's about an acre pond. And some nights, it's a warm, pleasant night like tonight, and I'll be sitting on the front porch with the dog or whatever, and I'll hear them splashing, or I hear a bluegill popping. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I know, it's cloudy, but I know what the moon phase probably is tonight. We probably got a pretty good moon. And then every morning when I wake up at dawn, I look out and see if I see any activity, any wakes along the shallows and the shoreline and all, and you can tell, okay, they're feeding, or it looks like a pretty sucky day, just like the cows up grazing in the pasture, if I see like today, for example, I probably traveled 50 miles out in the rural area where I live working cases. And every pasture I drove by, the cows are up grazing. And it's killing me that I'm not on the lake fishing, because those cows are grazing, the deer's probably moving, the squirrel's probably moving, and the bass are probably biting.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, totally.
Yeah.
And then, have you ever given any thought? This is a weird question about like animals and how they position, especially fish and cows. Grazing animals all usually position themselves in the same direction. Like cows all graze and point in the same direction. I always thought there might be something there for bass. Like I'm like, all right, well, what if all the bass are positioned in the same like direction? Like if they're all facing north or something. I don't know. Like all of them facing north in the grass or whatever. I never figured out like if there's something to that. Because you can't see them.
Yeah. And the rule of thumb in fishing's always been cast up wind, because the fish are positioning themselves in the facing into the wind or into the current, so it could be the same way with those cows. They're I've heard the rumor growing up on a farm like you do, Brandon, you have, a lot of times cows will put their butt to the wind because they don't want it drying out their nose as much, so
yeah, there's all sorts of stuff like that. So interesting. I love
speak
that.
good cow, so I'm
oh man.
Let's see. We got a couple other star things before we.
Yeah, let's hit a few more questions.
Did everyone see the new state record smallmouth bass catch in Indiana? 8-4.
Dang.
released back to the water. 8.4 is stupid. That's my largemouth PB. 8.5.
It's a
That's
new
awesome.
state record. That's crazy. Like that's a state record. Like that doesn't happen every day. That's wild.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to get into like a 6, 7, 8 pound smallmouth. That would be a freaking ride. Oh my god.
So do I.
You know, that's got to be like, I can't even imagine.
Oh,
Can't
man.
even imagine. Like, honestly, thinking, just saying it out loud, I'd be afraid of that fish on 20-pound line.
A 20-pound. That's really you'd be afraid
Yes.
of it then.
Yes.
Yikes.
I'd still be nervous.
Oh, that's because you use fluorocarbon. That's right.
No, just because it's small.
They
telling
pull
you.
that hard.
Yes.
Oh man, I need to see it for myself eventually.
Crazy.
Yes. Slav Fox is asking here. I'm assuming this question goes to myself and you, Mike. By the way, Mike, is that a Bagley hat?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's so cool. I like that hat.
Yeah.
Oh, man, have you ever gotten a gator to bite a swim bait? I have yet to have one eat one. I've had them come close to doing it though. So it's scary when you do a wake bait at night because you can't see,
Mhm.
especially in the summer.
Myself, I've had more gators hit frogs, topwater frogs,
Oh yeah.
than I have spinner baits or swim baits.
Okay.
And, especially down in Florida, it's like right after that hatch season.
Hmm.
You know, when you got 1,000 little gators swimming around the boat that big, I'm like, geez. You know,
You're just
2
like,
years
"Get
ago,
outta
I
here."
was fishing a frog up in North Florida, and it was in late July, and it finally just got to the point of just put it down and pick up something else. I mean,
Oh man.
you know, almost every cast, it was hurry up, race it. You get 4 or 5 good twitches up on the mat, and then here they come. You know,
Man, that's crazy right there.
Yeah.
Dang. Ooh, let's see.
but I
here.
have had quite a few gators hit a swim bait, but 99% of the time it's on a frog.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just love the frogs. you
The
know.
bullfrogs sometimes eat the frog, which is crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Tex Huntsman says Spooky Mike has my all-time favorite living room. Envious.
Thank you, thank you.
It is the best living room I've ever seen.
Yeah, you do have a damn good living room. Well, that's a good question. No spook. What are you doing next for your top water walking bait?
Oh, topwater walking bait.
Yeah, you got no
Okay,
spook.
yeah. I misread.
The spook's not an option. What would you go to next?
If I couldn't go in the store and buy a spook, I'll make one.
Not an option. You can't do it. What else are you going to? We're making a rule.
I'm probably going to go to not a walking bait, but call it a sputter is a devil horse, the
Okay.
biggest devil horse I can find. You know,
Okay.
if I can't get a spook, I'm probably going to that.
Is that like
devil horse.
it's like kind of like the shower blows?
No, here.
No.
Where's that? Thought I had one.
And also, there's he's passed away now, but down in my part of the world, yeah.
This is the normal size right here, but that's a devil's horse. This is my secret bait right here.
Okay.
I have an entire 3,700 deep of these things, and I weight them special. These things are big fish killers.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say. This is the one bait I won't talk about.
So you've read up on Topwater Charlie down in Florida, Brendan.
I have.
Yeah. Legendary
Yes.
guy.
Oh man, that dude right there. He's a character, or he was a character.
Yeah, I never got to meet Topwater Charlie, but I understand his specifications for a devil's horse was
Mhm.
very, very strict.
And he said 1 out of 14 would work properly, how he wanted it, or how it'd sit in the water.
Yeah.
And that's the one he would fish. And apparently it worked. So Mike, even if I sent you a topwater walking bait that I made, would you still throw the spook over it?
I won't have
I'm just kidding with
I
you.
won't have to give yours a spin. You know, I would love to put a 12, 13 pound stamp on the side of your bait there, Brendan.
Let's get it done.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be amazing
awesome.
right there.
But
I would like to touch on moon phases and moon, like the moon. Like I've noticed this about the moon. I'm big on fishing when the moon is not visible in the daytime. That's when I catch bigger fish. I tend to catch bigger fish whenever the moon is not visible in the daytime, because I don't know what it does. I have no idea.
There's it's in the dark phase. It's no luminous activity.
Mhm.
Typically a full moon phase, daytime fishing sucks.
Mhm.
Typically you're always going to have some fish that'll bite.
Mhm.
I go back to the old Doug Hennon rule that Doug Hennon always preached,
Mhm.
that even in a tank where they get fed at a certain time of day, I think Doug would use that example sometimes. They know they're going to get fed at 12 noon, and you got some crawfish that are free to roam around in the tank. That fish is going to eat at 12 noon, but he's probably going to take a bite of something, one of those crawfish in his tank at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, probably. So, yeah, they lay out all night long, partying under the full moon and chasing shad and having a big time. Same way with us. If we go out all night tonight and have a few and eat a big meal at daylight in the morning, we're going to be dragging. We're not going to want to be chasing cold beer and steak in the morning at dawn. I think it's the same exact way with the fish. But in a new moon phase, they're more apt to bite and feed because they hadn't been out all night long chasing bait fish and partying. I'm a big believer in the moon, and I'm really excited about the eclipse that's coming up in April. We're supposed to have this big giant. Every time there's an eclipse, I always try to be fishing that day, especially during the eclipse. And
I'm going.
Yeah, you get that period of real unusual lunar activity. I think it would be neat. I'm not saying myself, but I'd love to see anyone do it, catch a state record or a world record during this eclipse that's coming up in April. So very unusual.
Yeah, I'm going to be
I
fishing.
mean, mine should be close towards the spawn in April. That's actually a very unique time for us.
Yeah.
Ooh, that'll be interesting. That'll be a bunch of stuff mixed around.
Man, because like June, the first week of June is usually, and this year it might come a little early with the way the weather's looking. So that might Wednesday. Oh wow, that's interesting. Holy I'll definitely
look on my calendar. It's hard to see my calendar from here because I've had it highlighted and circled for over a year now. I think that total eclipse is coming up April the 7th, I believe it is.
I'm going to look it up right now.
It'll be during the spawning period, in our part of the world, Brendan.
Okay. Yeah, this will be. I think we might be able to get on some crazy bite or something and catch some big fish. Like, what if on this day that everyone went fishing, everyone was just like plucking 10-pounders out of it? Like, what if it did something to the bass? That would be crazy. That would be crazy right there.
April 8th. There we go. Carol said April 8th.
Okay, April 8th. Okay.
I'm calling out.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
If I work that Sunday, I really might, because then I'll be off Tuesday and just. Wow.
Uh-oh.
I would just tell my boss.
Yeah, just tell your boss I'm sick.
Like, hey, look, I'm crazy.
I believe it's supposed to hit along the midday. I think here in my area is like, I think going off memory, I think it's around 11 a.m.
Okay.
So up in your part of the world, Jermaine, it may be like 12:08, something like that. So yeah,
it would be interesting.
It'd be neat to be on the water anyway.
Definitely.
I'm always looking for an excuse to be on the water. So
I mean, who isn't? Come on now.
Yeah. But yeah, to get back to the moon, I think the moon is huge. We know the moon is powerful enough that it has such a great effect on the tides, on wildlife feeding. So
almost just
it's going to affect the fish as well,
Definitely. And it does like stuff to animals too. Like they get more aggressive during the full moon or something. Like you get a lot more deer like running across the road and people hitting deer and
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff like that during the full moon. I don't know what it is. It's weird. And like kids, like human kids, they get kind of
Messes
crazy
with everyone.
too. It's weird, you know.
Trust me, I know.
You got to
I
do
know.
stuff to fish.
I've called it a couple times just from being in sales. I'll be sitting at my
Mhm.
desk and like first thing in the morning, somebody comes in and yells at me. I'm like, dang. I get somebody else in, they like just are like upset and like just leave without even talk, like won't even give me a chance to negotiate. I'm like, the heck's going on today? And I'll get like the third
Mhm.
person I've done. I've been like, we're either about to get a full moon or there's a full moon today.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then somebody will be like, oh yeah, the full moon's tomorrow. I'm like, yep, there you go. There it is.
Man.
I know back when I worked the streets, there's a policeman on the streets every night. Our
Mhm.
call volume and some of the wildest, craziest calls and crimes were not always, but typically on or around a full moon within a day or two before or a day after a full moon.
Yeah.
So it does something to everything. Maybe
Yep.
it does stuff to plants too. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is
There's
interesting.
multiple reports, with and I got good fishing buddies, a doctor friend of mine.
Mhm.
He's like, man, I have multiple reports from patients of mine who's always complaining about they can't sleep certain times of the month.
Mhm.
And he said, just for my own, and he's an angler as well. And he said, my own research, I'd start, asking him when was this, blah, blah, blah. And he said, it's always related to a full moon. Those bright, luminous nights and full moon nights is people would have more trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure. Like I like fishing at night whenever the moon is full because you're able to see. Like you're actually able to see, like physically. All right, there's some trees there. Don't run into the trees. Like and
Yeah.
you're actually able to see where your lures hit, kind of because it's pretty bright out a lot of the time. If you get a nice bright moon going,
Yeah.
you can usually see pretty easily, and that helps a lot at night fishing. And I'm sure it gets them more active.
Yeah,
But
you get a cloudless night with a great full moon. I mean,
mhm,
yeah,
it's bright.
like my uncle would tell me stories. He was a special ops guy in Vietnam, and he said we didn't run
Oh,
missions on full moon nights.
really?
It was too bright. He said. I remember one night we were at his farm, standing on his back porch, and it was a bright moon. And the conversation come up, and he said, "You see those cattle out in that pasture?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "There's no light on them except full moon." He said, "Now you imagine you was running a mission tonight, and somebody shooting, might kill you and shoot at you." He said,
Yeah.
"No, we didn't do that."
Yeah.
He said, "A new moon was always the best night to run a mission."
Dang.
Ugh.
It's wild. Man.
Yeah. I think the moon is huge. And if a guy has got the time, and we all go fishing whenever we can. That's a given. But if you can
Mhm.
plan, say you're planning a trip out of state or a big trip or something, I always like to look at 10 days out. It's going to be a low pressure moving in, say on Lake Gunnersville in 10 days. And we're going to have a heavy cloud cover after that for 2 or 3 days. A south wind. Most anglers hate fishing in north wind because that signifies a cold front, or a cooler
Yeah.
temperature moved in. Just okay. Well, what's the moon phase going to be? Oh, it's going to be a new moon. So we're going to have
Mhm.
low pressure and a new moon, and probably some overcast conditions for the first day and a half. We're probably going to kill them that first day and a half.
Mhm.
And then the high pressure comes in. And I'm as guilty as probably anyone in there planning a fishing outing with weather, because I'll glance at it what it is in my area on the weather map, but
Mhm.
also glance at it back out in the Pacific and up into
Okay.
Alaska, and as to what's coming in the next 4 to 5, 6 days.
Hmm.
In the jet stream.
Yeah.
The jet stream will tell you the tale of the cooler temperatures or not.
Yeah. Man, it's cool to think about everything, like so many parts and pieces to put together, but it just makes it more interesting. And then you've got the guy that just goes out and was like, all right, I got off work. I'm going to go fishing.
Yeah.
He just goes and whacks them or whatever, you know.
Love it.
What's your preferred weather app? Or do you have a couple that you use?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Oh,
I didn't hear the question.
Sorry. What weather app do you use? Like, what's your favorite?
I use locally our local weather station here out of Jackson.
Mhm.
It's NBC. app,
Okay.
because the local affiliate here is very, very accurate with their weather here in my
Mhm.
part of the state. I also use the National Weather Service app,
Mhm.
and their office and facility is 45 minutes away here, I think, out at the Jackson International Airport. I also use
Okay.
the Weather Channel app,
Mhm.
and also use NOAA. So I use 4 different
Yeah.
weather apps. Yeah,
Dang. That's crazy.
yeah, especially during the
Interesting.
hurricane season. Yeah.
That's definitely very important right there.
Yeah.
Definitely. So you're not using any of these fishing apps as people are using it all the time.
I have one, and I use it
Mhm.
occasionally, but not as much as faith as I put in
Yeah,
the other
because
guys.
it's not the app's job for specifically weather. You know,
Right.
I would think they had to spread their budget across everything to check everything. You know,
Right.
whereas
And
the weather app, the Weather Channel, those are places that put their entire money towards that.
And I like the National Weather Services app and NOAA, especially the National Weather Service. You can get a page for barometric pressure. You can go back and look at so much history, on the National Weather Service app. I don't think it'll go back and tell you what the moon phase was when Noah launched the ark, but it'll go back a long ways.
Yeah.
You're doing
Oh
research
yeah,
on
you can.
big fish catches.
That's cool. I'm gonna look up that after the stream because I need to go look up some catches and figure out what was going on with the weather that day, like barometric pressure and all that. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, very nice.
And I think there's multiple of these little weather stations you can buy. I know Bass Pro has one, and I think you can spend as little as $50 up to several $100 for one. You mount it outside your home on your porch or wherever, and run the wiring inside and temp, humidity, barometric pressure, approaching low, approaching high front. Unfortunately, lightning got mine a couple of years ago, and I haven't replaced it, but put it in about 12 different pieces for me. But those things are really, really nice. They're really nice to have.
I don't think we have one of those. We might have to get one. That way you can take it everywhere with you and everything.
Yeah.
Texas Huntsman is saying, or Caro said the next eclipse will be in 2084. And then Texas Huntsman said, Brendan will still be doing this in 2084. And I can say, I remember 2024. I will have gone to the Great Bass Lake in the sky by then. I don't think I'll be fishing. I don't think I'll be fishing in 2084.
Yes, you will.
I might not be here. I don't know.
What do you mean?
That would put me at how
like
old?
90 something. You'll be all right.
I don't know.
You'll be fine.
Not
even.
We'll see.
Wait a minute, because if you're 18 and we're in 24,
19.
You're 19. So that's 60 years from now.
Yeah.
Oh, I might still be kicking, yo. Chill.
I don't know.
I don't think I'll be here. I don't think I'll be here.
Grandma's.
I'll be upstairs scouting out the next location to fish.
Yes.
When you guys get there.
Damn right. My grandma's like 92. So.
Oh man.
There
could be a chance. There could be a chance.
Yeah.
Mike, your ghost can scout out new lakes and places where they're fishing. You can tell me. Mid-80s still fishing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what keeps you good is the fact that they're still fishing. I'm telling you.
Yes. Yeah. Will there even be bass in 2084? That's the question.
Yes, there will. Stop it.
I don't know.
Yes, there will.
Scary. That would be horrible. I mean, have you heard what the Alabama bass have been doing? Like all that stuff.
Oh yeah. But I mean, that's y'all. Y'all got to worry about that down south.
I
Will
mean-
there be any Florida strain bass? Is a better question.
Mhm.
Northerns, we
True.
good. They don't live up here. They don't like the cold.
Yeah.
I think the Floridas will be with us.
I mean, look, I'd like to
I
think that
so. Yeah.
at some point,
Yeah.
That's one thing I
environmental.
like about the Floridas, they typically will spawn earlier. Say, if you got native Georgia bass or Mississippi bass in a pond or a lake,
Mhm.
the Floridas will spawn earlier.
Mhm.
So odds are that over time,
Mhm.
the Floridas are going to slowly eliminate the native strain.
Okay.
'Cause the Floridas
Yeah.
spawn earlier. The native largemouth spawn a little bit later.
Mhm.
So these guys are getting bigger faster to eat
Yeah.
these other guys.
Yeah, they're out competing them and everything, and they get bigger faster. Like they just eat more.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Excuse me. I got to share this with you. I thought it was so neat. I was
Okay.
fishing with a friend of mine last week, and he was showing me photos of a lake he manages. This small lake, 12, 16, 18 acres, whatever it was.
Mhm.
The largemouth bass were stocked in this lake. F1 Floridas were stocked in this lake June the 1st of last year of 23. He was showing me photos of bass that they are catching right now in
Mhm.
that same water. They're weighing 3.25 pounds.
Hmm.
Man,
Not even a year old. Weighing
that's
3.25
crazy.
pounds. I mean, what are you
Wow.
feeding them? Steroids?
I mean, like, they're just pumping them. They're pumping them full of steroids. Every time you catch a bass, you take a needle.
Yeah.
all
I
these
mean,
all these fish are ready. All these
that is
fish are coming
crazy.
up to the. All the
That's
fish are
crazy.
coming up to the bait like this, ready to
Yeah.
fight it.
That's
But
crazy.
our state record bass was only 8 years old.
What?
It was
That's
18.15 pounds. Anthony Denny caught back there. I believe it was New Year's Eve of '92. That fish was 8 years old.
Hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those
I would love
bass-
to. I would love to beat a state record one day. That would be
That's
so cool.
nuts.
That would be
That would-
amazing.
You got
That's
to
okay.
you got a lot to chew there, Brendan.
I do.
22.4 is your state record. So
Oh man. Hey now, if Ken Duke and Terry Battisti demolish that record and find out, and tell everybody, tell the masses that it's not true, the 18 pounder will be, I think it's 18.8, 18.6, somewhere around there, will be bumped down, and that will be the state record. So I might have a chance there.
Yeah.
Probably not, though. Probably not.
yeah,
Ooh.
I feel very confident that Ken and Terry have that information
Hmm.
to
I do.
especially Ken to debunk
Mhm.
George Perry. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I'm sure they will eventually. I can't wait to see the series that they come out with on that. It'll be like 30 episodes long.
Yeah,
That'd
it'll be a mini series for sure.
Yes. They'll be working on it for 10 years.
Same, Carol. I just want a double digit. Nice 11. Can we get like an 11.6?
That'd be nice. It's
That'd
a
be
big
dope.
fish right there.
I wonder where Miss Ferg is located. Which state? she's in.
Arkansas.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Arkansas.
Plenty of double digits up in Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
What part of Arkansas?
I think she's in the north part. North-ish, I think. I don't know.
Jackson. She said she's from Jackson.
Jackson. Okay. Gotcha.
I'm not familiar with Jackson, Arkansas.
I am not either.
What-
Have you?
Give me a landmark, Brendan. Where Jackson's something that Jackson is close to.
Let's
Is
see
that over
here.
around Flipping there? That's not around Flipping Mountain Home area, is it?
Let's see here. Jackson,
Michael
Arkansas. Let's see here. Jackson, Arkansas. Where's the map? Where's our map? Northeast.
Northeast.
Central.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
kind of northeast-ish.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
Let's
close
see
to
if I can
Greer's
figure out.
Ferry. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
I got you.
In Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh, Jackson, Mississippi. Oh, that's. I thought she was from. Wait a second. This entire time, I thought you were in Arkansas.
I thought Kara was in Texas.
We're so confused. Oh man. Uh-oh. Okay, so I do want to touch on this. Have you guys noticed that whenever the panfish and small bass are really active and you're catching them and you're seeing them moving around, you don't see a bunch of big bass, or you don't catch very many big bass. Have you guys noticed that? Like those little fish are like moving around because they're active, because they're like, oh, we're living carefree because there's no predators around to eat us. You know,
Maybe.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
yes,
coast
yeah.
is clear, so we can get out and move a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
The big bully's hiding in the treetop, so let's get out and play. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And I tell you another observation, and it's that time of year right now to start hearing these stories pop up
Mm-hmm.
all over the world. You'll start hearing these stories. Some kid or grandpa or someone is sitting on the shoreline fishing with a cane pole, catching bluegill or catfish, and all of a sudden this giant bass swoops in and they catch a 10, 12 pounder on a cane pole and a little bluegill hook, you know. And I've got theories on that. I may be totally wrong, you know, but they're probably being a little quiet, you know, because most people told to be quiet when they're fishing. But and I witnessed this so many times as a kid growing up. You know, this lady's sitting over here on our dam on one of our farm ponds here on our farm, catching these little tiny bluegill, and she's throwing them back in the water.
Mm-hmm.
She's chumming them up.
Yeah.
Chumming the bass up, you know. She deep hooks one and he's floundering on the surface, and a few minutes later,
Mm-hmm.
an 8-pounder swoops through and hits the fish and grabs her hook, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
she's bread fishing and catches 8, 10 pounder. You know,
Man,
I've always loved that, and I think
that's
it's cool.
cool.
It draws those people back to fishing. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
keeps them coming back. Or one of my favorite stories is a lake I fish a lot down in the southern part of the state, just off the coastline. It's I would say half of it is lined by docks and homes on this
Mhm.
90-acre lake. A few years ago, this little kid runs in from school. He grabs his brim pole and he's fishing with a live bluegill, trying to just catch a catfish or a bass. You know, or he took a cricket, I think, first and caught him a little bluegill about 3 inches long. And then he puts it on the hook and is trying to catch, you know, a catfish or a bass. He gets one strike. It's 14 pounds, 3 ounces. Largemouth.
What?
You know, and everyone in the neighborhood told me they heard him screaming. They thought he fell in the water. You know, he's 10 years old and catches a 14-3. You know?
You are spoiled for
insane.
life if you catch
Yeah.
a 14-3 like that. That's insane.
Insane. I don't even know what I would do.
And that goes to show you how much better live bait is than these plastic fish.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that's one reason swim baits, you know, are so effective, because they look so lifelike and their
Mhm.
action is so lifelike, you know.
Yeah, and they're like not many people throw them either, so the fish aren't really conditioned to them yet. I mean, maybe the fish in California because everyone throws them there, but not here, especially not in Mississippi. Like I don't know a single swim baiter that throws swim baits in Mississippi besides you. You know,
Very few.
I'm
Very
sure there's
few that I'm aware
there's
of. Yeah.
yeah, and if there is some out there, they're keeping it quiet for a reason. You know,
Right. Right.
and you're on here on a podcast blowing it up. You're probably going to come home to some messages. They'll be
we're
like,
not
"What are you giving it up? What are you giving out the juice for?"
Sorry when we blow up and everybody goes back and watches our backlog.
Yeah. Oh boy.
It's
Yes.
okay. It's, you know, we need more fishermen out there. You know,
Mhm.
I don't want to go to my favorite lake tomorrow afternoon and there'd be 100 boats in the parking lot, you know, but
Mhm.
we need more anglers. I
Yep.
think we've lost a little bit of a foothold. We lost a large foothold after COVID,
Mhm.
because during COVID, you couldn't even go in Walmart and buy a pack of Zoom worms anywhere, not in my
Yeah.
Yeah.
part of the world, because everyone was at home. They were going fishing, license sales went through the roof. And
Mhm. Which is amazing.
yeah, and it's a good experience for the whole family,
Definitely.
There was a lot of moms, single moms, took their kids fishing during COVID. I'm not saying they're not now, but it got
Mhm.
real popular.
Yeah.
A lot of kids that never got to fish. They went with the guy across the street. The neighbor next door took them fishing. Or they went
Mhm.
down to the creek in the neighborhood fishing. So I think we need more anglers. I think we need less video games and more fishing. For
Most
sure.
certainly. I think everyone can agree on that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we
Definitely.
need to. I think Brandon, you're the technical genius. Apparently, I think you need to devise us our own weather game. Fishing game where we can pick the right weather conditions to go fishing.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm
I don't know
always
if that.
for that, a good fishing game, but I don't know if it'll ever happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Eventually, I'm sure. Like all this AI stuff, all this craziness.
Seen a couple like good like game fishing, and it's like you can't fish for just bass. I'm like, I don't want it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too much big into games personally. Tim says there's 100 boats here at the ramp here at Bugs Island every time I go. Bugs Island is a pretty big lake though. Like it's pretty sizable. And Tim, you live in like a place where there's like a lot of fishermen. But
Yeah,
that's a lot of boats though. Like
I
for
think
a
I think
non-tournament.
I think Maynard must fish a lot. I see his name pop up on several different podcasts, and
Tim
I'm
is
jealous. I think Tim's gets to fish a lot. So.
I don't think he's
He's
been
one of the
fishing
big
in a
fellas.
while. Listen, Tim right here, he's a fishing freak. Like you want to talk about modifications on baits, tournament fishing, all that sort of stuff. Like he's a big cranker too. He loves throwing a crankbait. That's a big thing. But he lives out there in North Carolina. And Tim, we need to get you on here. I was talking to him last night, actually. What was I talking to you about? I was talking about something. I don't know. I can't remember. But so, Mike, you got anything else for you? You got any other weather related things or anything else you would like to touch on tonight? Anything we glazed over or didn't hit?
No, not particularly, Brendan. Safety is the number one factor, number one
Yes,
thing to
sir.
keep in mind. Uh, I'm the world's worst. I think I admitted earlier. I'm the world's worst about watching the weather. Like tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., I'll be watching the weather, and if I see a storm coming tomorrow afternoon at 5, I want to do my best to be on the water a few hours before. And multiple times you get out there having a good time, you're catching them, or oh wait a minute, two more casts, and you got 3-4 foot rollers coming on you, and it's done got dangerous to get back. Or either you're out at a little lake or farm pond in a lightning storm, and the truck's a half a mile away. So, safety conscious, weather awareness. If
Definitely.
I'm a big believer in when it's cold and a little bit rough, I'm probably not going to take my life jacket off all day long.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
Smart.
it's dangerous.
I've been in the drink when it's 20 some odd degrees,
Ooh,
and your body locks up.
yeah,
You're trying to
Yeah.
get back to the motor to get in.
Yeah. It's hard.
And,
it's
I was
scary.
lucky. I was lucky and fortunate enough. And what happened is the boat got broadside in some big swells.
Hmm.
And as I went,
They come up the side.
I went off the side, and I was
Oh.
fortunate enough. I had a buddy in the boat with me that knew the old trick about when I grabbed the engine and put my feet on the tail fin in the prop
Mhm.
area of the boat. He knew he wasn't going to pull me in.
Mhm.
I was 190 pounds and got an extra 40 pounds of water and gear on me,
Mhm.
snowsuit or whatever. He knew he wasn't going to pull me in easily. So he just hit the trim switch.
Mhm.
Hit the trim switch, it trims up. I step right in the boat.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's scary though. That's crazy. I had a buddy out in California or Oregon actually. He
That's
kayak
small
fishes
town.
and he dumped his kayak. He flipped his kayak and he's like 250 pounds and he couldn't get in. And the Coast Guard was able to come and get him and he was able to get out.
That's
That
me.
right there's and it's like it was in the winter too. Like it was he said he got like hypothermia and stuff. Like it was bad. Which is like that's scary right there, Mike. Like what happened to you? Like be
Yeah.
glad that you had him there to help
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I don't even go out on the
Oh.
water. Like once it gets to a certain point up here in New York, and I'll just bank fish. I'm
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, Sunday, it was eventually like at the end of the day when I went onto the main lake, that wind right there was whipping through. It was bad.
You know, and we didn't touch on hot weather conditions very much.
Mhm.
And I think every single one of us is guilty of this, from a small child up to the oldest angler, is not drinking enough water. When
Yeah,
it's really hot and we're on the water, you know, especially more than 3, 4, 5 hours. But if you get a little wind blowing, you know, a few years ago, my son was, well, Dad, I'm not sweaty. And no, you're not sweaty because we got an 8-mile-an-hour wind and it's dry and you're staying dry in this wind,
Mhm.
you know, but you hadn't drink any water and it's 98 degrees outside, you know.
Yeah,
So it's easy to get dehydrated real quick, you know, especially
definitely.
in the South United States like we are, Brendan. You know,
Hmm. Very, very dangerous,
very-
especially if you go out there all day and you only
Yeah.
bring like 2 bottles of water
Yeah.
and you don't
Yeah.
and you don't bring a cooler.
How many times have you been fishing and just 4, 5, 6 hours on the water and you get in the truck and you're still hyped up and you feel good, but you get in the truck driving home and all of a sudden it hits you like you
Yes.
feel like you're hungover or you've been up all
Yeah.
night long. You know?
Yes.
He said, well, heck, I looked in the cooler. I didn't drink any water at all, you know, today.
Yes.
every time.
Especially if you're
It's every tournament.
yeah, you gotta stop at the gas station on the way back and you grab like 9 sweet teas
Yeah,
and you drink all of them right then and there.
I get like a bag. I haven't eaten. It's bad. I have
Yeah.
like a ritual. I get like a bag, 2 bags of chips, a bag of Doritos, definitely spicy nacho, and then like I try to get like as real food as I can get, but it is what it is. I end up snacking for the ride home.
Yeah.
Lifesavers.
that's dude, gummy lifesavers. That's like the candy right there.
The blue bag is crazy. That's the best.
Oh man. Oh, Kara's in here making fun of me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, that's right, Gary. I don't think Brendan's 21
I'm
yet.
not here yet. I'm not there yet.
Never even. That's crazy.
Well, stay away from Terry Battisti.
Oh, oh boy. Kara's every that's
That's
an
a
interesting
fact.
situation.
Kara's in. We just decided Kara's in Mississippi, right?
She was
She
born
right
and
in-
raised in Mississippi and then moved
Okay.
to Arkansas. So
Okay.
that's what we've got it figured out now.
Yeah, I would be fishing in Lake Taneycomo there in Branson, Missouri, if I were her.
Oh,
Game and Fish is predicted that Missouri Game and Fish is predicting the next Missouri state record to come out of Taneycomo. You know, 'cause
Mhm.
all those largemouth do there is swim around and feed on trout. You know,
oh man, I bet they're big there. I bet you there's going to be a big one caught out.
and their state record, I believe, is a little over 14 in Missouri. And
Carol, get your butt up there right now. Jay, get my girl. Grab the troops.
Kayaking trip.
Go on, do what you gotta do, player.
Tim, Jeff Cobble. That would be super cool. That would be awesome to get you guys both on here. That'd be cool. Definitely.
That'd be dope.
Alrighty.
Got
Sweet.
anything else for tonight, though?
Yeah.
I'm
We
getting
got
tired.
anything else?
It's almost 12 o'clock here. I'm gonna get my butt in
I think
bed.
it's getting pretty late. So, Mike, you got anything else to add to tonight's discussion?
Oh, I'm sure
Are
we
we
skipped
good?
over. I'm sure we skipped over a lot of pertinent information, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, and
We
you
can
know,
have round
We'll
two
get you
sometime.
back. Hell yeah, round 3.
Oh yeah, round
Round
3.
3. Yeah, we'll get them back. Get you back for sure.
Heck
I
yeah.
enjoyed it, guys. Thank you for having me. I really
Yes, sir.
enjoyed
Thank you.
I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. Thank you for what you do. It's always
Yes.
a great show.
Of
Thank
course.
you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And you make it a great show too, man. It's always fun
Yeah.
having you on here to talk.
I appreciate
So-
it. Thank
Well, is there anywhere people can find you? Do you have any social media that you connect with people or are fine with people seeing?
you. Yeah, only Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook's the only social media platform that I do, and
Yeah.
a lot of it's because of my real job. I
Mhm.
try to stay under the radar a lot. And
Yeah, definitely.
easy to find, and if anyone ever wants to exchange email and talk fishing or questions or comments or tell me how crazy I am about some of these theories, it's real simple email. It's mwwoods28@yahoo. So that's mwwoods28@yahoo.
Nice. Well, there you guys go. Don't go hitting him up in the middle of the night though. He needs to sleep so that way he can go fishing.
I'm probably
So-
dreaming about fishing. Brandon.
Yeah, you're probably dreaming
Right.
about fish. So, well, alrighty. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Mike. Everyone in the
Thank you.
chat. Thanks for hopping on.
We'll
And
see you next week.
yeah, we'll see you guys next week. See y'all.